Okay, guys, welcome to Social Studies today. We're going to focus on kind of our form of government. So when they formed the Constitution, well, first of all, we have what we call federalism, and that's when the federal government has some power and the state has some power. I mean, there's federal laws and there's state laws. So our government isn't just everything doesn't just happen in Washington. Each state has power too. So it's kind of shared powers is what federalism is. And that really was a compromise um, when we formed our country, because you had two different camps. You had the Federalists who really wanted a strong federal government, and then you have the Anti-Federalists who wanted the states to have more power. So this talks kind of about the compromise and kind of the position of the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Okay, so the first one is, who needs a central government? In America's earliest days, the founders experimented with several types of government. The first one was organized under an agreement called the Articles of Confederation. It created a central government that had very little power. Individual state governments kept most of the power. That gave the states a lot of independence, but also created problems. The founders tried again, and this time they wrote the Constitution. Signed by the representatives from every state, the Constitution created a stronger central government that shared power with the states. So the Constitution couldn't be passed until it was approved by the states. And when it was sent out of approval, a raging debate started. Many people feared a strong central government, so they feared the Constitution. Okay. So that's where we have the two different camps. We have the Anti-Federalists we're going to read about now. So it says Anti-Federalists, down with the central government. In a system where the central government shares power with smaller units of government, such as states, the term federal refers to the central government. So the federal government in our country is basically based in Washington, and the states, each state also has power. Okay. So it says on one side of the Constitution debate, Anti-Federalists want a small central government. They believed local governments best understood what citizens needed and what would best protect citizens' freedom. Anti-Federalists opposed part of the Constitution. They thought limited the power of the states. They feared that a strong central government would overpower state governments, and eventually state governments would lose their independence and influence. They also didn't like the original Constitution and not guarantee citizens any specific rights. They feared that the central government would be so powerful it would just be like having a king. Okay. That's really why the Anti-Federalists were originally against the Constitution. And now we have the other camp, or the other side, which is the Federalists. And you can see here, yay, Federalists, yay for a strong central government. Federalists wanted a strong central government. They believed that a strong central government was necessary. If the states were going to band together to form a nation, a strong central government could represent the nation to other countries. It could also control individual states that would not cooperate with the rest. Federalists also believed a strong central government could best protect individual citizens' rights and freedoms. Federalists were not afraid of the central government created by the Constitution because they had three branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial, that could limit each other's powers. That way, the central government cannot be too powerful. Okay, so really, it kind of comes down to state rights versus big government. But some of the problems, if you can imagine, so if the states had all the power and we got into kind of a war like we got into with England, each state would be responsible for, fighting against another country. You could see some problems with that. Also with trade too, each state would be able to set up their own trade treaties with other countries, and that could be problematic too. But really, they kind of came up with a compromise, and we'll talk about this. So it's a battle on paper. With no TV or internet in the 1780s, the two sides duked it out in newspapers and pamphlets. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay used the fake name Publius to write 85 letters supporting the Constitution. These were published in newspapers that are called the Federalist Papers. Anti-Federalists responded with their own series of letters and essays arguing the Constitution was a threat to liberty. Okay, so in the end, the Federalists agreed to add 10 amendments or change the Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights, and we've covered that in class. So the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. Like the first one is freedom of speech, freedom to protest, religious freedom. Second one, Second Amendment, obviously, is the right to bear arms. So what they did is they compromised, and the Anti-Federalists were okay as long as those Bill of Rights were put in there. Okay, and these amendments guaranteed a list of rights of citizens. The Anti-Federalists were pleased, and this edition became the Bill of Rights, and it limited the central government's power. Okay, so it's really important because even today we still have arguments over states' rights versus, basically federal governments try to be good for everyone. And that's still it comes up today a lot. So what this next section is here, this says, who would say what? It says, read each statement. If it sounds like something a Federalist would say to support the Constitution, write F in the box or F on the line. If it sounds like something Anti-Federalist would have to say to complain of the Constitution, write A. So it's either Anti-Federalist or Federalist. So the first example, the Constitution gives the federal government enough power to overpower the states. So that would be something that the states would fear, that the government would overpower them. And that's kind of really central to the Anti-Federalist argument. They were afraid of the federal government having too much power. So for number one, you would write A for Anti-Federalists. 2, it will not be possible for the federal government to overpower states because the states are a necessary part of the federal government. And that would be a Federalist argument, that the states are necessary to the overall government. So you can see, you're just going to go through this and try to read each of these and tell me whether you think it is Federalist or Anti-Federalist. And remember, if you're not sure, you can just go back up and read. So the first one's Anti-Federalist, and the second one is really the Federalist. So these are just points that obviously they made when we were forming our government. So I just want you to go through. We did the first two. We'll do 3 here. So the Constitution contains no Bill of Rights to protect individual liberties like freedom of speech, trial by jury, the right against search and seizures. That'd be Anti-Federalist, because the Federalists, when they first came to the Constitution, there wasn't any mention of individual rights. So that would be kind of a big sticking point for the Anti-Federalists. They want to make sure that individual states' rights and individual citizen rights were in the Constitution. So 3 would be an Anti-Federalist argument. So go ahead and try to do the rest of these, and we'll pick up a little bit more kind of about how our government, was started. We cover this in class a little bit. And I think maybe a month ago, we did that exercise for some of you, if you're there, about separation of powers, because our government has the 3 branches. We have the executive, which is the president. We have Congress, which is the House of Representatives, and the Senate. And then we have the judicial, which are all the courts. So each one of those branches is supposed to have equal power. And we have a thing called checks and balances, where each one is supposed to check the other branch to make sure one branch doesn't get too powerful. So we can come back and visit that, but I want you to just try to fill in the rest of these. Remember, it's just Federalists would be F, Anti-Federalists would be A. All right, that's all I got for today, you guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you